Welcome to Beyond the Barrier, the podcast where we explore the wild world of public safety, fire, law enforcement, EMS, and security with your hosts, Jake, Corwin, and Joe. We're here to break down the barriers and go beyond the usual topics, from heroic tales of first responders to the latest tech in the security industry. We've got you covered, so buckle up and get ready for a ride that's sure to be as exciting as a high-speed chase, but with less sirens. Let's jump beyond the barrier and see what's on the other side.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Beyond the Barrier. On this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about body cameras, and especially in a hospital setting for things like public safety. But first, a few housekeeping things. If you have something that you'd like us to talk about or touch on, shoot us an email. Our email is beyondthebarrier1@gmail.com. You can also reach out to us on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, when I get it up and ready, our website. Also, if you like the show enough and you want to see things like audio quality improve, or maybe we can save up and get an expense for a pretty well-known guest, check out our Patreon. Consider supporting us. You can find us at patreon.com/beyondthebarrier. Another thing, if you have artwork and you kind of just want to put it out there and show what's going on in public safety centric artwork, submit that to us and we will use it on our next show post. And you can send that to beyondthebarrier1@gmail.com. So let's go back to, what are we talking about? In this episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about hospital security, public safety, utilizing body cameras inside a hospital. Some of the things that, why does a hospital need it? What privacy situations does this bring up?
Yeah, so let's talk about why a hospital would even need it. What body cameras even bring to the table, and the aspect of, how is it helpful to a hospital? How is it going to benefit them? Is it even worth them getting? So a couple of the things that I had for it was, one, body cameras help deter bad behavior. People don't like their bad behavior being recorded most of the time, right?
What? No way.
I know, crazy, right? Who knew? But yeah, so people don't like having that behavior recorded because, one, that builds a case that they cannot deny, right? So that's one thing it brings to the table. It might, and that's not to say it does every time. Just because you have a body camera on doesn't mean that every person you encounter is going to be a little angel.
Man, if that was the case, we should have embraced it a long time ago.
Absolutely, because good Lord, I hate dealing with people, which is a crazy thing to say given that, I'm in the field that I am.
And we've all worked with people our entire lives.
Yeah, and most of the time it's been shitty people. But yeah, so that's one thing it brings to the table, is it helps deter and de-escalate violence and aggression by really moderating their behavior. Because, it might not make them be an angel, but they probably won't punch you in the face. Who knows? They might.
Okay, but to be honest, if it's recorded and I could potentially get a copy of it from court, definitely still going to punch you, Jake. Because Fight Club, come on. I want to see that from your angle.
Fight Club, yeah. Okay. So another thing it can do or help with is improve safety in your work environments. It can really can make not only the person wearing it feel safer, but the person that you're encountering feel safer, just because, they know that they have that there protecting them. And when I mean that, when I say that is, if I'm wearing that body camera and it's on and I encounter somebody that claims excessive force or something, if I don't have that body camera, it's pretty hard for me to argue it.
It provides irrefutable proof. There's no he said, she said anymore.
And that's mostly important in a context where we have limited or no camera coverage. There's not a lot of spaces where we have that, but that also changes based on hospital.
But like at our hospital, like Corwin says, there aren't a lot of spaces, and he's correct. In general areas, the hospital is mainly covered. Patient areas, the hospitals are covered, and for the most part. But, the public only sees the parts of the hospital where they're allowed to be at. There are many occasions where we deal with things where there aren't cameras at all because the public's not even supposed to be there. I'm kind of glad that this episode's happening right now because I just had the most hilarious / disgusting thing happen to me on Saturday or Friday, and I'm sure Corwin's heard about it already. If not, oh man, hang on for this ride.
Hashtag Jake time, story time.
Yeah. One of these episodes we'll just have to have story time. But
Food time.
yeah. Joe's already knows too. So Friday, right? I'm sitting in my car. Or no, I was sitting at my desk and my guys get a call for someone acting strange and trying to get into endoscopy. So I pull up the cameras at my desk and can see that the gentleman has headed south towards where our hyperbaric chamber is and where our pulmonologist doctor's sleep room is. So I let my guys know that that's where the subject is heading to, and I then go get in my car and head that way as well. While I'm on my way there, my guys radio me and say, "Hey, you need to get up here now." So I get up there, and this man is intoxicated, and he has went to the pulmonologist's sleep room, knocked on the door. The pulmonologist answered the door, thinking it was someone to, let him know that he was needed or whatever. This man barges into the room and proceeds to shit everywhere. Just shit everywhere. Shit his pants. Shit all over the room. Shit everywhere. He shit all over this room. So I walk into the hallway and I am immediately taken back by the smell. So anyway, this man has also proceeded to play in his feces. And he's sitting there arguing with my officers. They had gotten a wheelchair. Obviously he's intoxicated. He's so intoxicated that he's shitting himself playing in it. We can't let him leave. He's a danger to himself. So they get a wheelchair to take him to the ER, and he's arguing with them about getting in the wheelchair. And me, absolutely taken back by this, I decide that, we're past the point of arguing. This man has shit everywhere. He needs medical attention because of how intoxicated he is. Not to say that just because he's intoxicated that his actions are okay, because they are not. He's absolutely a disgusting person. But I go over and I grab this man, what we call a basic Moab-based escort, and I assist him to the wheelchair. And he claimed that I had used excessive force. Now, granted, that's the kind of situation where it's great to have that body camera, because I can easily argue, or not even argue, easily prove that excessive force was used. Or not used, I'm sorry. Not used. I did not use excessive force on him. Luckily, other than my officers that I had there, I had a doctor and I had the house supervisor of the hospital. So they both saw this take place and were able to say without a doubt that no, excessive force wasn't used. So that was my little recent event story of, why body cameras can be useful and they can help in a hospital setting.
That's a wild ride.
Dude,
I have no words for that.
It was something else. It was, I never say that I've seen it all, because when you do say that, you will get something that absolutely just makes you step back and be like, you have not seen it all or the half of it. But I've seen a lot, and that really surprised me. That's not something in a million years I thought I would ever have to deal with, but that's hospital public safety.
So there are a couple things in that story, Jake, that not all of our listeners are in the medical field, public safety, or anything like that. So, couple clarifications. What's a house supervisor?
After all of the admin staff leave the hospital for the day, all the managers and stuff, you kind of need you need a motherfucker in charge, right? Well, that's the house supervisor. Their job is they are in charge of the entire hospital after hours.
Okay. There was something that was used, an acronym or abbreviation. MOAB. What's MOAB?
Oh, that's management of aggressive behavior. I believe Joe talked about it in one of our previous episodes. If you'd like a full definition of what that is, go listen to that episode. It was being a public safety officer in a healthcare setting. But it's just it's one of the techniques that we teach our officers to deal with aggressive people.
So in that instance, like, body cams are great, and I'm guessing that, having that on camera would have also improved the satisfaction of the doctor and the house supervisor that you and the other officers indeed did do something. Why else would hospital public safety need body cameras?
The biggest reason, and I'm sure Joe will touch on this, is the enhanced training that you can get from a body camera. There are, we deal with, I believe it's 40,000 calls a month is what we deal with, right around there.
4,000?
Or 4,000.
40,000.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That'd be a fucking number greater than like San Francisco PD.
We deal with a lot of calls. But so with the amount of calls we deal with, we have the potential to deal with a lot of high stress, high scenario, or high stress, bad scenarios.
This is the reason why. So when you're involved in a situation, your memory gets clouded. So when you go back after that situation later on to write that report, and you're thinking, what happened? Is this how it happened? Is this what the person said? Is this exactly what I did? Or is this what that person did exactly?
Yeah, it definitely helps in the aspect of report writing, but I was referring to like the training, how it enhances training.
Right. If you'd shut up, I'll get to it.
Fair enough.
So, again, it's that irrefutable evidence of the situation as it happened instead of somebody recalling what happened. So later on down the road, if it's a situation where, say it was a situation where Jake used excessive force with the poo guy, they could look at that footage and say, okay, this was a little excessive. For future reference in dealing with people with bio-waste, covered in bio-waste, this is the training we're going to implement so that we don't come across a situation where we may unintentionally use excessive force. So it's just an opportunity to go back and look at that footage later on and create training from it to prevent the same thing from happening twice.
And that's a really good way to put it. The other aspect of it is, for general training, hindsight's always 20/20, and having the ability to look back and see, are our officers utilizing this MOAB technique or this Gracie Survival GST technique correctly? And if not, what can we do better to train for this? And for scenario-based training, when we go back to the training room, and I know when I went through our academy process, we had to do scenarios. And, situations like this, you can bring up in those scenarios because guess what? It actually happened. You will actually have to deal with this.
Yeah, the scenarios we provide during training are actual scenarios that our officers have dealt with already. And we already use footage from the hospital. So, like, if we catch something on one of those fixed cameras that we have, we will save that footage. So it's no different than what we do already. It's just that person now has a camera mounted on their body, on their persons.
So it provides another perspective, because fixed cameras give you one angle, whereas the body camera gives you a bubble view, depending on the body camera, of what's going on at the officer's typically chest level.
So let's go ahead and talk about it since I feel like we're getting there. What are the privacy issues with it? Well,
Yeah, huge one. The big one. This is what stops
So-
hospitals.
the issue isn't the camera itself. There's already cameras in hospitals. They're everywhere. There's cameras in the ER. There's cameras in surgery. There's cameras on the med surg floor. They're everywhere. The issue comes entering into pretty much patient rooms. There's no cameras in there. There are cameras in trauma rooms. They're for education, and a trauma surgeon will decide when they record. There's a switch to turn them on and off.
And the patient they still have to ask that patient for permission afterwards if they survive that event.
Right. So basically, as far as my perception of it is, the issue lies when you're direct encounter with a patient, typically in a patient room. Now, we encounter a lot of patients not in a room. You might argue that, well, they're already on a camera in the hallway, so what's the difference? The other difference is body cameras record audio. So it could be potentially recording a piece of HIPAA protected information.
Yeah, one thing would be I know when I am dealing with patients, I will a lot of times ask the medical staff, what are they here for? So we know if they're there, because we need to know what they're there for. If they're there for a brain injury, then we know, okay, if we have to go hands-on with them, we need to try and be as gentle as possible with our hands-on approach. So that's one of those pieces of audio that would be protected information.
And kind of touch on that little portion there as well. Knowing what they're in for allows us to look at our toolbox and see what other tools we have available to de-escalate the situation. And that's an important part of that.
The other thing is how is this video footage going to be stored? Well, it may contain HIPAA protected information, so it has to be stored according to HIPAA. Meaning, in the law enforcement world and security world, most body camera footage is stored in an evidence manager that is cloud-based. That does not work for a hospital. That is not that's
it has to be server-based storage or whatever.
That's not HIPAA compliant.
And what they mean by server-based storage is cloud is still server. It's just a server off premises.
Yeah, we have to physically have the server on our property.
What would be referred to as a local server or a local storage. So, and it also has to be protected so that not anybody can just access it. Only certain people can access the video footage. Only certain people can redact footage. Only certain people can delete footage. And then deleting footage. There's another thing you get into. There has to be certain sign-offs, so not one person can delete footage without somebody knowing. It's a multiple factor authentication, basically. So if they were going to change the footage, redact it or delete something, not one person can do it. It takes the sign-off of basically 2 or 3 people for it to actually be able to be done, because you're altering something that is essentially part of a patient's record. That's a part of the patient's record now.
Which helps tremendously if they have what's called a violent flag or some other instance. The biggest issue that I can see with that kind of stuff is if it's stored locally. We already have a lot of PHI and PII. PHI is private health information, or private health information, and then PII is personally identifiable information.
PHI is protected health information.
Sorry, protected health information. Got to get my acronyms right. But anyway, on top of having, that electronic record of text, now you're introducing image and spoken word, which is biometric data, which can still be used and is used by bad actors for identity theft, especially with the rise of AI and how it's being used in everyday life now. Having a snippet of someone's voice can help further bad actors' goal of identity theft. And we see it all the time. We talked a couple episodes back regarding, the convergence of cybersecurity and physical security. This is why it's important, because we see hospitals get hacked all the time. And this is going to be another layer that our cybersecurity and physical security have to protect in order to protect patient information.
People might say, well, why would they hack a hospital? What are they gaining out? How are they getting money from it? It's right here. This is how they're doing it. They're holding that protected health information hostage. And how they're doing that is hospitals use patient charting applications like Epic and stuff like that. And they hold it hostage. They make it to where they can't access it or take snippets out of it or whatever it may be. They hold that hostage. And again, that's where that body camera footage would be, is in that patient charting application.
So if the hospital, that information is being held hostage and it gets released, the hospital's ultimately responsible for it, and the person that's in that video can sue the hospital.
Fines for HIPAA violations are not just, well, this person's information was accessed improperly or was released. It's per piece of information. So that can cost a hospital a lot of money and cost a lot of people their jobs.
Right, and to go back to the training thing, kind of left this part out. HIPAA also regulates who can view patient's chart. So to view a patient's chart, you have to be directly involved in the patient care, or going to be. Like a surgeon may not be directly involved yet, but he may be consulting the patient or looking over scans or something like that. So he might be involved at some point, and he needs to see that to determine whether he's going to be involved. So back to that training thing, if we're using the footage later on for training, it's kind of hard to justify that we need access to that footage because of training. It could be a year down the road. There could be no patient care involved anymore. So technically you're violating HIPAA because there's no patient care, but you're viewing stuff that is essentially part of that patient's chart.
Yeah, so and how we I'm sure the question would come up is how are we able to use that footage later like we do? So we have to redact certain things from that footage, whether that be blurring the patient's face or whatever. And then the other thing is we have to be able to maintain it in a way that it will not be released and to anybody except for us, the ones that are using it. So, moving on, how can we ensure that it's not going to be misused? Obviously, you will have the people that want to, save the footage of them getting into a fight with a patient because they think it makes them look badass or whatever, or, whatever.
Well, again, I think we've kind of already covered this. I talked about only certain people having access to footage for certain reasons, and then you have that multiple authenticating factor.
Yeah, and I just wanted to talk about, how like hospitals can really just dumb it down, and just to make the rules and the policy easy for everyone to follow. Don't make stupid exceptions to the rules to whom and how they can record and things like that. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is the people that make this policy. It shouldn't just be one person that makes the policy on these body cameras in a hospital. It should be a team of all, maybe not all the stakeholders within the hospital, but a good majority of them, because the more people you have to sit there and come up with this policy, the better the policy is going to be. And it should be, and the easier it should be to implement it. And maybe you're missing part of it that, someone else will pick up, maybe you're not thinking of every aspect, and one of these other people that you have involved in making this policy now are, hey, we need to incorporate this. And, well, that's why you need to have multiple people come up with this policy to implement body cameras. It doesn't just need to be one person.
And it has to take time to implement and draft these policies. It can't happen overnight.
Yeah, you guys make it sound like that this is like a 15-page policy and there's all sorts of shit that's involved in it. And
that's exactly how we're not trying to make it sound like, though.
That's exactly how you made it sound, though. I tell you that, as we've said in the past, I have experience working at another hospital in the metropolitan area in Des Moines. And they have body cameras. It's a very generic one-page policy.
I guess I should say this. Where we currently work, we do not wear body cameras. But by this time next year, we will be wearing body cameras.
Oh, is that supposed to be my cue for an audible gasp? Oh my gosh, we're going to be wearing body cameras?
So real quick, I want to talk about how else they can help in an officer setting or something like that. Certain body cameras, not all of them have this capability, but a lot of them do. The hospital that currently these guys work at, they have a dispatch operations center. So if you get an officer that's involved in a situation and maybe he's not answering the radio or something like that, or they just can't get a hold of him for whatever, and they know that he's by himself during a situation, some body cameras allow for live viewing, so that dispatch center could view his camera live and see what's going on, and let the en route officers know that, yeah, hey, he's fine, he's just talking to somebody, or somebody's currently kicking the shit out of him, he's laying on the floor crying like a baby, just whatever it may be. So it's just it's another officer safety feature.
So what are some of the cons of body cameras? And I'm sure Corwin and Joe will have more to touch on with this. One would be officers feel like they aren't trusted, like the company is just implementing them to better watch over the officers. And I would say the way our bosses have talked, that is not the reason for at all. The reason they want to implement them with us is safety for us. It better protects us. It helps us in many ways.
It's a nice CYA tool.
Yeah, it is. My personal feelings are that you control when it records. So if you're doing...
Well, that's not entirely true. Like I said, some of them have that live feature.
Yeah.
Well, and some body cameras also can go back 2 minutes prior to recording. It doesn't have the sound.
Yeah, so that's called pre-event recording, and that's actually a feature so there are actually standards for body cameras. I can't remember the Homeland Security or just some federal agency. I don't remember. It's like a fucking 200-page document, and it creates standards for body cameras and their storage. But that pre-event recording is a standard required on all law enforcement grade body cameras.
But Joe, not all hospitals are willing to buy law enforcement grade body cameras.
Then they're stupid.
That's a failing on their end.
Yeah, because not only does it create features like are the body cameras that meet that standard, there's also security like encryption and stuff like that with the camera itself. So it's just an added layer of security. If you go out and you get a fucking Amazon body camera, you're just ignorant. I don't know any other way to put it. You're just ignorant.
Unless you were like some private security guard that, your company doesn't provide you with body cameras, but they are okay with you wearing one. Even then, you shouldn't go cheap. But if that's the only option, having one's better than not having nothing at all.
Also, if you're private security and working in a hospital, don't do that.
But like I'm saying, if you have to go the cheap route, just remember you get what you pay for, and it doesn't always...
I've got one. course, as everybody knows, I work in private security. I've got a cheap one. It's cheap compared to a real law enforcement grade one. It was about $130, but it's definitely got less features than the one that meets the federal. I think it's Homeland Security to put that out, but I can't remember who it was. I'd have to look it up again.
So another con of a body camera is people. It might be a con. Might be some people might see it as I kind of see it as a blessing, but hey, whatever. But people might be more apprehensive to talk to officers knowing that they're being recorded, just because some people don't. Again, they don't like being recorded, especially if you're questioning them about something that whether they broke the law or whatever. So that might be a con. It might not be. It might be a good thing. Who knows? The other one that I hear all the time I hear it because my guys obviously know that we will be going to body cameras soon. And I hear it. This is their top complaint is that it'll be used as a gotcha tool, that it'll be just the higher ups are just going to sit there and watch them so they can see when they fuck up so they can write them up or whatever. And with our leadership where we work, I do not believe that would be the case whatsoever, but I imagine that does happen a lot in other organizations.
Here's the thing is if you're doing your job and you're doing it to the best of your ability, that shouldn't be something you should have to worry about.
But Hams, Joe, leadership changes all the time. How do I know it won't eventually be used as a gotcha tool?
Did you just call me Hams and none of these people know what you're talking about?
Exactly. Yes, I did.
That's when your policy comes into it again. Stuff like that needs to be written into your policy.
Yeah, so I know part of our policy will include that they can't just sit there and watch over footage, that these cameras will be used to help officers document reports and help review significant events. Other than that they are not allowed to just sit there behind their computer and view officers' body cameras.
And I know talking to current staff members, not just within our department, but others, one of the concerns is, hey, what if I say something off-colored in the heat of the moment? Will I get in trouble with HR because of that? My answer to that is, be careful.
One, you shouldn't be saying, I understand people say things out of frustration and anger or whatever, but you should be mindful of that. Two, I would say, no, you will not be in trouble, more than likely, depending on what you said, because the way that they view that is they wouldn't know if they weren't watching that camera.
Here's the thing. You're ignorant to believe 100 times I've fought patients or whatever. Somebody's always fucking saying something stupid or doing something stupid, and you have to tell them to knock it off. Or the nurse is fucking running her mouth, saying stupid shit, antagonizing the patient. It happens all the time. Those people are not professional. Know how to keep your composure and remain professional. Those are all things that you will never have to worry about.
And I, with my officers, I am a very proactive supervisor. I answer calls alongside my officers. Shut the hell up. But I ensure, if I hear one of my officers saying something, and Joe can attest to this because I've done it in front of him. If one of my officers say something that's inappropriate, I will tell them right there to shut their mouth. Right. I don't care who it's in front of. I can remember one specifically. Joe was training an officer, and he was running his mouth along with the nurses. That's their deal.
The breather.
Was that who? Oh, yeah.
The fucking breather.
But this guy, he was running his mouth along with nurses, and like I said, that's their deal. If they want to be like that and whatever, it'll catch up to them sooner or later. But if one of my officers are going to get involved with that, it's not happening. And I told him right there to shut his mouth. And then I told him to go to our ER office, and I ripped him a new asshole in that office and told him that, if he wants to talk like that, he can hit the door. So that's like Joe said, if you're doing the right thing, you have nothing to worry about.
Funny because that guy is no longer employed anymore.
No, he actually turned out to be a shitbag. So
We knew that before he even got hired.
So that's all I have for the cons. I guess now we'll just I think all three of us have kind of similar views. So my view on the body cameras is I think they're a great tool that every hospital should implement. But it shows me that the hospital cares because they're allowing me to protect myself with this camera. So that's my feelings on it. I am all for body cameras. I think they're a great thing.
I think that they're great. You have to be careful how you implement them. My biggest thing is I'm a big advocate of what they could do for a person in court. So all the time when we arrest people or the police arrest people, so in Iowa, there's different varying levels of assault, just like there is in any state. But then there's also a special level. It's called assault on a person in a certain occupation. It's a Class D felony.
It's not. It's not a Class D felon. The first time you are charged with it is a serious misdemeanor.
It depends on the situation.
If you just slap someone, it's a serious misdemeanor. If you cause great bodily harm, then it can be elevated to a felony.
Either way, it's a Class D felony. In the entire time I've worked in the hospital, so people in certain occupations, who falls into that category? It's police officers, corrections officers, firefighters, EMS workers, nurses, doctors, any hospital employee except for public safety. That's just how that works. I don't know why it's fucked up.
Which has been different here lately.
So what I'm getting at is all the time, or in my entire time working there, I've only seen the police do their fucking job and charge somebody with that particular level of assault probably 2 or 3 times. But if you read the law, something as simple as spitting on somebody or spitting on a nurse is a Class D felony. But instead, that person gets charged with simple assault. So what I'm getting at is I think that they're a great tool for court. When you go to court and the county attorney looks at it and he's like, wow, this guy slapped the shit out of her and then spit on her, and you charged her with simple assault. It's easier when you read it on paper. The county attorney's like, oh yeah, okay, same stuff we always. But when you actually see it happen, then it puts it into a better perspective. And they're like, I think we need to maybe upgrade these charges a little bit. Maybe that's just my perspective of it, my view.
And in general, I think body cams are a good idea. They're a great tool to utilize after the fact for training and for report writing and for court purposes. However, a hospital has to have the policy and security infrastructure on the cybersecurity side to accommodate those things. Just implementing it with no regard for anything in that realm is...
It's irresponsible. It would just be irresponsible.
Irresponsible.
It would be more of a liability than it would be a help than anything.
Right. And the other thing is we talked about, it's a piece of protected health information. You have to protect it. The other thing is you also have to consider is it may not be just recording one patient. If you're on a mental health unit in the common area dealing with somebody, you could potentially be recording 4 or 5 other patients too.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to take that into consideration.
Or if you're in the ER lobby, you're dealing with maybe 3 or maybe 30 patients all at once.
Yeah, you really, before organizations or hospitals implement it, they really need to have policies backing it. They need to have not thought of every scenario, but at least thought of, a blanket coverage to cover everything. They need to really, really think out the process. It's not something you can just go, hey, we're going to go buy 100 body cameras from Axon and implement them tomorrow. You just can't do that.
I'll tell you this. If you are looking at implementing a body camera program where your hospital is or whatever it may be, go to the IHAS website. There's a study that they did, I want to say in 2016, might have been 2017 or something. Yeah, it was a couple years ago. It's got a lot of good information in it. They covered a lot of the basic foundation building tools for a body camera program, the cons, the HIPAA portions. If you're looking for a program like that, that'd be a good place to get started to get your basic information.
And if you're a administrator, public safety director, a medical director for an EMS service, or a paramedic or security officer, and you think this might be a good idea, the other resource that you can utilize, use your vendors as a resource. While one of the more well-known vendors, formerly Taser, now Axon, has a lot of options for body cameras as well as their storage. So if you don't know how to implement something on the technology side, utilize your vendor. They are an invaluable resource, and they want to A, make that sale, and B, want to have repeat customers. So if they can perfect this area, either in public safety in a hospital or pre-hospital EMS, they're going to do it because that opens up an entire other market share for them. Utilize your vendor.
They've already sold the hospitals. They know how it works. They know the hoops they got to jump through. They're familiar with it. They'll have answers, or they'll be able to get answers.
Another place I would say to go get some information, like IHAS, Axon actually did and I understand this is a company that sells body cameras, but they actually did a lot of research and they implemented a program where they did a study on body cameras in a hospital. Go check out their research on that. It's really good information. Granted, it is going to be a little biased because they are trying to sell their product, but they did still do a lot of good research and live research that's more recent. Their study was in 2022, I think, maybe. So it's a more recent study, so go check them out as well.
As with everything, we are not paid to speak on behalf of any of these companies. I just know, and I've worked with Axon's body cameras before, working with the police department that utilize them. I myself did not wear one. I was not at the level where it made budget sense to have one. However, I was always with another officer who did have a body camera for those purposes. So
I wore one for the city of Milford, Dallas, and I wore an Axon camera. And to be honest, I didn't like it. Just the functionality of it. In my opinion, there's better cameras out there. But it's a big name. The reason a lot of companies or law enforcement agencies use them is because you turn your taser on, it automatically turns your fucking body camera on, or
they also sell the storage side of it too. So it's a really all-inclusive package, and that's why a lot of companies float to them as well.
There are other companies that sell storage too.
Anyway,
they don't sell tasers though.
They
that's what I meant by their. That's what I meant by they're really like an all-in-one package. You can get everything from them.
And that's why they charge $800 for a camera.
Well, I didn't say that they were, right in their pricing.
Anyway, if you're an administrator, do your due diligence on potential camera vendors. The other thing to look at is, oh God, I forgot where I was going with that.
I'll say this. If you are an organization that is thinking about body cameras, if you have a vested interest in your company and protecting yourself, body cameras are something that you should not even think about. You are talking to people about implementing and buying. If Joe and Corwin don't have anything else, we'll move on to our training tip.
I do have one additional thing. I just thought of it.
Of course you do, you son of a bitch.
Love you too, Jake. When I trailed off and I forgot what I was going to say, there are a lot of grants and other organizations out there that assist in the purchasing of body cameras for organizations. law enforcement, private security, and even hospital.
Axon even runs a grant to help law enforcement get body cameras.
So if you're an administrator or you're a stakeholder or you're a security officer, mention that as well, because that helps alleviate some of that cost for you and your organization, which sometimes for some organizations, that is the difference, whether or not they can afford it. And in this day and age, it's hard to say you can't afford it because the safety benefits outweigh the cost 100-to-1, in my opinion.
Real quick, I just remembered what organization is that set those law enforcement. It's the DOJ, Department of Justice. They set it's like a 200-page document of standards for law enforcement grade body cameras.
Anyway, that's all I had to add.
All right, so our training tip for today will be
wait. All right, now go ahead.
All right, I'm going to go to jail for murder. So, we'll catch you guys next time we are inside from the prison walls. Okay, so training tip is from the Bureau of Justice Assistance. It's a federal website. They have a ton of training and info on body cameras, studies, reviews, all kinds of stuff, all kinds of great information and knowledge that you should be looking into before you implement body cameras. So go check them out. Check out their trainings and the info they have for you about body cameras. Our gear review is so like I said, I don't carry a body camera currently, so I don't really carry any gear that has to do with body cameras. Neither does Corwin, and Joe has a little bit of experience. Anyway, go check out 09 Holsters. They have a ton of great gear that I do wear right now. And if you're getting something from them, it's going to be quality. So go check them out. They have a ton of camera holsters for all different kinds of body cameras, whether it be Axon or whatever. Go check out 09 Holsters. A lot of great stuff. If you guys would like to contact us, reach out to us at beyondthebarrier1@gmail.com. This is all we got for you guys this episode. Stay safe out there, and we will catch you guys next time on Beyond the Barrier.
And that's a wrap for another episode of Beyond the Barrier. We hope you enjoyed diving deep into the world of public safety, fire, law enforcement, EMS, and security with us. Your trusty hosts, Jake, Joe, and Corwin. If you liked what you heard, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to follow us on social media for even more exclusive content and behind-the-scenes look at our guests and topics. But for now, it's time to put down the walkie-talkies and hang up the handcuffs. We'll catch you next time on Beyond the Barrier, where we'll continue to break down barriers and explore the exciting world of first responders and security professionals. Stay safe out there.